MAGA Republicans, both in and out of office, have been attempting to pressure Democrats to stop referring to Donald Trump as an authoritarian threat to democracy. And the Fox Propaganda Network actually went to Capitol Hill to try to spring some gotchas on some Democratic lawmakers, only to be shut down. And it was glorious, and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, I saw this clip and I'm like, yeah, we got to talk about it. I actually have multiple clips for you, but I want to start with this one here. So as you know, after the second failed assassination attempt on Donald Trump, there has been a pressure campaign in and out of office by elected Republicans and their surrogates in the media to try to get Democrats to stop referring to Donald Trump exactly the way he should be referred to, because it's what he is, an authoritarian threat to democracy. And Fox, again, put a microphone in the hands of one of their reporters. They went to Capitol Hill and they hit 3 brick walls back to back to back in the form of 3 Democratic lawmakers who shut the Fox reporter down pretty brutally.
I'd like to know if you think it's time for Democrats to stop calling Trump a threat to democracy.
No, fact of the matter is that he is a threat to democracy.
No, I think we should be clear that he is a threat to democracy.
Do you think that the rhetoric, though, needs to be toned down?
I think his rhetoric should be toned down, absolutely.
Listen, these are the facts. He is a threat, period, point blank.
Love it. Just beam that directly into my brain. That was glorious. So you have 3 Democratic congresspeople. You have Hank Johnson. You have Pramila Jayapal, who is the chairwoman of the Progressive Caucus in the House of Representatives. And of course, you have superstar freshman Democrat from Texas, Jasmine Crockett, who is also Marjorie Taylor Greene's arch nemesis. Love it. I love this because in times past, I think it would have been tempting for for Democrats to succumb to a dishonest, bad faith pressure campaign by Republicans to indulge and cling to civility politics. Meanwhile, Republicans get to say whatever they want, whenever they want, about whomever they want with impunity. We seem to have wisened up because here are Democratic lawmakers resisting that impulse and saying, no, listen, the violence against Trump is unacceptable. We condemn it. In an advanced democratic republic, you don't have the right to engage in any sort of vigilantism, including political vigilantism. And there's an upcoming election in which Donald Trump can and should be defeated. That's where you do it. You don't engage in political violence. On the other hand, we are going to continue to call him an authoritarian threat to democracy because he is. And if you have a problem with that, then Donald Trump needs to stop being an authoritarian threat to democracy and vociferously apologize for all the times he was an authoritarian threat to democracy. He could start by apologizing and conceding the 2020 election, admit that President Biden kicked his ass in the election, that he lost, he was a sore loser, and apologize to the American people for deceiving tens of millions of Americans and engaging in extra lawful, or unlawful rather, and extra legal attempts to steal a free and fair election from President Biden and install himself as a dictator. He could start with that. And then he could drop out of the election. That'd be great too. But the fact of the matter is, Trump is what he is, and it's perfectly reasonable for Democrats to continue to call him what he is. But it's not just Fox News. You also have actually presence or certain segments and presences on CNN, of all places. Scott Jennings is a Republican conservative CNN analyst who's gone viral multiple times because he's pissed off former Republican, donor and influencer George Conway, who used to be married to Kellyanne Conway, one of Donald Trump's closest advisors. They had a heated exchange. And then Scott Jennings tried to pull this stuff on Elie Mystal, who is a progressive lawyer and legal activist. And Elie Mystal shut him down on pretty comparable grounds.
What I mean is, look, when you've had this kind of language about somebody be the underpinning of a campaign for years and intensely for the last several months, the only way to unwind it is for the people who've been saying it, chiefly the president and the vice president, to go on TV and say, you know what? We went too far, and what we said, honestly, is not true. The country will not end.
Okay, I think the Democrats will tamp down their language about Trump. The moment Trump tamps down his language about the Democrats, about immigrants, about people of color, about women, and not a moment before.
What about how many times are we going to shoot at him?
Is your argument literally
Wait a minute, but
that you are not under threat unless somebody directly takes a shot at you? Is that actually what you're saying? Do you have access to Secret Service files about how many threats Harris and Biden have received over the past year? How many threats Barack Obama, the first black president, received for 8 years while he was in the White House? Do you have those Secret Service files, or are you just out here talking because somebody was caught in the bushes on Saturday?
Somebody.
If you want something done, if you want to get away from from this violence and hatred, the clearest thing to do is to take away the weapons that these people are using to cause the violence and hatred. Rhetoric does not kill people. Guns do.
So you're okay.
Great stuff. And also just a brilliant redirection by Elie Mystal there at the end to say, hey, listen, if you really want substantive changes to the situation, then perhaps you conservatives should stop blocking widely popular common sense gun control reform, which the vast majority of Americans want, but you block because it's in your political best interest. And he's right. Again, I love the flat out cold rejection by Democrats. This is good. We need to do this. Just say, no, we're not going to play this game. Your side is infinitely more susceptible to violent rhetoric. You have employed violent rhetoric infinitely more than our side. Again, we can play this game so easily. For every one example a Republican could cite of President Biden or a prominent Democratic leader employing violent or incendiary rhetoric against Republicans, we could find 2 to 3 to 5 to 10 to 20 examples from Donald Trump and prominent MAGA Republican leaders against Democrats. This is not a both sides issue. The Republicans are objectively worse, and it would be dishonest and irrational and stupid to pretend otherwise, and we're not going to do it. And if you really have a good faith interest in shutting this down, then you need to clean your own house. You need to turn to your own people and say, you know what, we're kind of more the problem than anybody, so maybe we should stop. Maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene should not refer to Democrats as an evil party of groomers and pedophiles. AOC has never said anything like that about the Republican Party. She's never tarred and feathered tens of millions of Americans the way that Marjorie Taylor Greene does, the way that Trump does. Maybe they should be socially and politically and reputationally punished by their own people as a sign of goodwill that they're actually serious about calming down political rhetoric. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is MAGA Republicans, they want the license to say whatever they want, whenever they want, about whomever they want, with impunity, but they don't want to have to deal with a fraction of a rounding error of that same energy in turn, because they're hypocritical loser snowflakes. That is what the MAGA Republican Party, unfortunately, has become. It just is. Also, great point by Elie Mystal that Scott Jennings doesn't have access to Secret Service details. Secret Service doesn't always publicly disclose attempts and threats against President Biden, Vice President Harris, and others. There's no telling how many things have been investigated. As a matter of fact, Secret Service, as we speak, is probing a since-deleted tweet by Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, one of the most influential right-wing activists in the world, one of the most influential people in the world, for suggesting that people might want to try to assassinate President Biden and Vice President Harris instead of Trump. We have actually seen, and that's the other thing too, these MAGA Republican influencers, they appeal to the fact that it's so damn hard to remember all the terrible, stupid, dangerous things that MAGA Republicans have done. But there have been documented attempts by Trump supporters and conservatives to try to kill President Biden, Vice President Harris, and former President Barack Obama. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump shared President Obama's address a year or two ago, I think it was last year, and a Trump supporter saw it, liked it on Truth Social, and went to with a van and a gun and a bunch of ammunition and parked outside President Obama's DC address and was arrested by law enforcement because he planned to murder the former president on live stream. And that was explicitly because he got the address from Donald Trump retweeting it. There's nothing like that from the Democrats against Republicans. Nothing like that. Again, even on that, Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are just objectively worse. And they have a hard time computing that. One last clip of Kurt Berdala of News Nation, a Democratic surrogate, also making this point pretty harshly, and I love it.
Republicans coming out today and saying Democrats have to tone down the rhetoric. Why did you almost spit out your water?
You don't get to lecture Democrats about rhetoric when you are the one advancing dangerous and disproven claims in Springfield that is resulting in people not being able to go to school because of bomb threats.
He's right. Donald Trump would not disavow the bomb threats even when repeatedly asked, and he and J.D. Vance continue to signal boost these unsubstantiated claims, which have actually been refuted or contradicted at the very least by local political and law enforcement officials. They have no credibility in this respect. And Democrats need to stand their ground and say, no, we're not going to be lectured by you. We're not going to indulge in your hypocrisy and your asymmetry. We will continue to call Donald Trump exactly what he is. And if you don't like it, tell Donald Trump to change. In the meantime, If anybody's going to start toning down the rhetoric, it needs to start with the Republicans, given that the Republicans are objectively worse when it comes to egregiously and frequently employing incendiary rhetoric. Good on Democrats showing backbone. Love to see it. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.